Okay.
All right, he is back.
All right. Hey, so do you want to start with your report, Glenn?
Sure. So just a couple of things. We just want to touch base on, just to give you an update on Christian Ridge Road real quick. Really the only update I wanted to give you is that I think I had talked before about a property owner that we were having difficulty with that we needed drainage issue, we had drainage issues with. Just to give you a heads up, we are going to be sending that property owner a letter from our legal department about possible taking property through eminent domain. We're hopeful that perhaps that will prompt her to become a little bit more cooperative with us. So just a heads up that that's going to be sent out in the next week or two. So and hopefully we can work something out without having to take property. But the issue is the drainage. We've exhausted all options outside of the existing drainage ditch that runs through the property, and everything else is cost prohibitive and/or just won't work based on the topography. Thank you. The slopes that we need. So. So this is really kind of the last resort, but hopefully we can work it out without actually having to take the property, and we can work something out that will be somewhat agreeable.
Is the this isn't the one that they needed to replace? This is a whole different issue.
Yeah,
this is that original.
This is the original issue from the onset of the project. We've been trying to address it and just have failed thus far. So we had a progress meeting yesterday, and I brought legal into the meeting, and we discussed all the options, and so this is the first step to try to get that issue resolved.
What did you end up doing about the other cross drain that you found last week? Or?
Yeah, so the cost estimate to replace it from RF Jordan was excessively high. So the ultimate decision was made to, at Haley Ward's cost, to just remove and not put the drainage, the cross pipe back, just remove it. They had previously, the design was without it because they didn't know it was there. So the decision was made to just leave it, omit it, and have it removed and just covered over and filled in, and continue on with the project as designed.
Okay.
So, and that's all at Haley Ward's cost. So.
Okay.
So I had a meeting with Grow Smart Maine to discuss the visit from the state director of the USDA Rural Development Program, and Nancy Smith. She's actually on the, she resides here in town. She's on the steering committee for the comp plan, and I met with her, Matt, and Jana, and the visit is planned for September 27th. We're hopeful to get one or two counselors that may be available that day to join in on the visit, along with some other, we're looking at probably a group of somewhere in the 8 to 10 people range. As part of that there'll be discussion about projects and about, needs that the city has, specifically dealing with stormwater, wastewater, some water, and we're gonna take her on a brief tour of some of the facilities, specifically the water plant, in hopes that perhaps the USDA Rural Development, they have multiple different programs and grants and funding sources. Perhaps we can tap into some of those. And the question was brought up, and Michelle or Tammy, one of you may remember, were there USDA funds utilized for the wastewater treatment plant?
Yes, just temporarily. We financed it.
Yeah.
We've
So,
used them for quite a few water projects, though, in the past.
yeah, so the hope is that maybe they can get eyes on our water treatment plant, and then perhaps we can develop some funding sources for that project. So that meeting's on the 27th, and so again, I'll be reaching out once we kind of narrow down the scope a little bit and what the focus will be. We'll be reaching out. I know there was some conversation in the meeting about having John Stein attend, because there is some of the grants and so forth revolve around manufacturing, food and manufacturing. So the thought was that he might be a good representative, where he's a small business owner here in town that does beer, but.
Bread in a glass.
Yeah. So that
He's
was.
is he on the comp plan committee too?
He is
Yeah.
on the steering committee, yes. Yep.
Yeah, he'd be a good one then.
And I don't know if Ann's gonna touch on it or not, but we had multiple meetings actually this week for paychecks. That work continues to get, all the information transferred over to them for payroll. We're hopeful next week, I think, for them to run our first payroll. So that work continues, and then in the coming weeks, they'll be in the building to provide training for their timekeeping software, which we'll be transferring to here in the coming weeks as well. And they'll be on site to do training for all the staff, to bring them up to speed on those processes. So that work continues. And financially, that is pretty much what I had this week.
Corinne, I do have a question. Where are we on the ARPA funds of the county? You heard anything from them yet?
No, outside of the rejection that I got from the county administrator. I did talk to Amy and shared that information with her. She was going to reach out to, I think, at least one commissioner who she was familiar with, to see if perhaps we can circumvent the county administrator, and get placed on the agenda directly through through one of the commissioners. She was also gonna start the work of getting some support letters from fellow superintendents of other school departments outside of the city of Ellsworth to utilize it. And I did talk to Nick from the Grand at Noontime Rotary meeting yesterday, and he informed me that he had gone to the county commissioners looking for funding for the Grand, and was met with the same type of resistance and stonewalling, just basically telling him that they asked him if did he ask the city for money, and he told them that the city does already fund the Grand significantly, and they ended up rejecting him for any funding. He did, and the way he managed to get, because I spoke to him about my rejection, if you will, through the county administrator, and he said that he got on the agenda through one of the commissioners. So I'm hopeful that we can go that route to get on an agenda in the near future, and perhaps with some support from communities outside of Ellsworth for that project, then perhaps the commissioners will be a little bit more agreeable to it. But so far, my experience with them has held true with this funding and their reluctance to provide it to anyone, so.
You know,
Yeah, so, because I was in a meeting, an EBDC meeting this week,
Uh-huh.
and, one of the members of that had asked about how to get to the county because they were having a really hard time with a nonprofit they were going through, that the county administrator was stonewalling them. But that person had talked to Billy Clark, and Billy had said that he was getting nervous that they still had all that money.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody, and wasn't able to dole it out, I guess would better be the way to say it. So I'm not positive what's going on over there, but I wonder if maybe a direct conversation with him,
Yeah.
and, you know, with an understanding, maybe if you and Amy together can talk with him.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Amy today. I know that's the commissioner that she was planning to have a conversation with, so I'll reach out to her today and see if she's done that. And if she hasn't, then I'll suggest that perhaps the two of us set up a time to meet with him and see if we
Yeah.
can make any progress that way.
Yeah, I guess whoever that county administrator is quite the doorkeeper.
Yeah,
Well-
apparently, when it comes to ARPA funding anyway.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, ultimately, and maybe it is a conversation with one of the commissioners, but that there's an interest, at least by one commissioner, to have discussions for the future about how the county can create an ambulance service, because all communities in Hancock County are running into the same issues that we have. To not have, at least have an honest discussion and allow a conversation about this request doesn't promote that kind of willingness in the future to partner with them around those kinds of discussions. So I think that that's an important piece to put out there in terms of the conversation individually, of just saying, listen, this is about just a conversation. We would like to have a reasonable conversation with you to make the case and share with that. And the fact that we can't even sit in front of you is ridiculous. I think that should be put out there as well. And I've had a conversation. I'd be happy to participate in a call if you want to do that.
I think it would be good if you did, Dale, as the mayor of the city.
As long as it happens very quickly.
And too funny.
One other thing I failed to mention from my report before Ann takes over is we did meet. We had two good meetings. One with Woodard and Curran, reviewing all sorts of projects and funding sources, and I know Ann extended that meeting and got a lot of valuable information from Brent. But that meeting specifically started out about the High Street pump station, and that project is will be going out to bid this fall. Hopes for construction to begin in the springtime, similar to Water Street, so the construction will happen through the summer months as Water Street has gone on, Water Street pump station. And yeah, so that project's in good shape, and Jana also attended that meeting, and she will be, unfortunately for her, because her name's on all of the federal documentation, she's going to be the point person for that application and moving that part of the project forward, the funding from the congressional spending forward. But Woodard and Curran is all over it and willing and able to assist in any way that we need for that project. So, yeah, so that was good. But that's all I have, so I'll turn it over to Ann for her report.
Okay, thanks.
All right, first of all, the fiscal year 22 audit is completed. I made the executive decision to have them do this, the final stuff with the school first, because I need that. I need the school on their way. We can't, the city can't float them, so We'll have ours on Tuesday. I've got, I went ahead and moved forward with Maine Bond Bank because we're running out of time, and Kelly was fine with us getting that part of the application in next week. So things related to the audit. The last things that we worked on this week were, again, problems with reconciling credit cards and utility payments. Just because those records weren't kept, it was pretty tough to get those reconciled, and I'm not sure how they finally handled it. The CFA's good. I just signed off on it yesterday, so that's gonna go out to maintain our ability to get grant funding from the feds. And let's see, what else did we do? Okay, so then my meeting with Woodard and Curran after High Street Pump Station was to go over all of the projects and all of the previous planning that's been done and how we're planning to use various funding sources, not only with Fed funds, but also matching funds. And then we talked about the Clean Water SRF application and how we were going to use that loan. And then we'll start on the DWSRF app probably next week. Other than that, I've had a couple meetings about Paychex, Government Window, which is the new software that they're going to have for Trio that will allow people to make payments online with checks. So this should make our lives a little bit easier in the clerk's office. And then we start on chart of accounts next week with Cassell. So we're really going to start stepping up the pace to get going with Cassell, since our subscription with Munis is going to run out in October. Next week I have a meeting with the bank regarding credit card processing. During the last finance director administration, he made a change to the processing of credit cards. Unfortunately, the vendor that he chose can't give us adequate records to be able to tie out those transactions. So we're going to take a look at changing that most likely. And then we continue on with the CIP, the long-term financial plan, and starting to get ready for the next budget session. And that's it. That's all the excitement from finance.
So,
And we
And
started.
when we do the DW, the SRF funding and the clean water, do we have a percentage of principal forgiveness that we expect, or?
On the 8? No, I don't think so, but we have a rate of 1%.
Okay, but no principal forgiveness?
I don't believe so. I don't see it anywhere on the paperwork. But our motivation was the incredibly low interest rate, because we can't get that anywhere. Not even close.
Yeah.
what's the impact going forward for the FY23 audit in terms of, obviously, it's still an issue that didn't get completely resolved, is,
We've already started on FY23 ourselves. The auditors haven't started it. We've started the prep work because it's probably worse than 22, frankly.
so do we know, is that going to impact the ability to get a timely audit, do you think?
I hope not, but probably. That's why we're starting it now. We started it actually last fiscal year.
Because the auditors should be starting soon too,
They will
right?
too. We just are finishing up 22.
Because that just has a potential impact on
Yeah, I
everything. I know you do. I'm just making the
No,
kind of
we've
public
started
comment.
on that already. May's already begun to go through the accounting, and there's just a lot of issues
Yeah.
with it.
And
And so we're unwinding, and we found a lot of them during basically what we saw in fiscal year 22, we saw more of in fiscal year 23, so we had a good idea of where to look. So, we're gonna start early with trying to decipher the utility billing accounts and some of those issues. the pay mode, the pay ports, all of it, and getting the bank accounts kind of under control. There's multiple accounts that credit cards are getting put into. We don't know why exactly. So there's gonna be a lot of the kind of behind the scenes overhaul of just process so that we can keep it more organized, because
And it's,
Well,
it's
even
far
if-
from it.
Even if I mean, you can't, the auditors can't come in as soon as you close anyway, Dale. Even if we were in really good shape, there's a lot of accruals and reconciliations and things that need to be completed before they can even come in the building anyway. Even if we were perfect and everything was done, they can't walk in the day that you close the year. We still haven't even done, we haven't even done any of our votes on bringing funds forward and things, encumbrances. We need to do that too.
Yeah, I
In
mean, we
2023, or we won't have to be able to complete our project.
yeah, no,
can't start 23 till all the final entries for 22 are put in, so that we have those starting points. And then we can
Right,
move forward with reconciliation of 23.
no, and I get that that's the basis of my question, is that the audit, if we were running on a regular basis, the audit would already be started. And so, just based on that, having a typical expectation of getting a completed audit by November, December is not realistic, so for me, it's more, and again, this is not blaming, because you're cleaning stuff up, and it's just, now's the time to build a solid understanding among everyone, among the council, the new council members that will be coming in November, just to be really clear about, okay, cleaned up 22, but here's the impact on 23. This is the expectation issues. It's just getting everybody on the same page, and also trying to establish some of those deadlines. The school, again, when does it absolutely need to be there, so that doesn't impact that, and just trying to create something so that there's a realistic plan, and it's not just this feeling of the auditors just telling us, oh, we're involved, but there's all kinds of stuff. I think now's the time to build some sort of plan that we work towards, and.
Yeah, I mean, we have been doing that. We've been trying to anticipate where the problems are gonna be, because that's where the problems were in 22. So as soon as we started finding it in 22, we started looking for it in 23, and that's been ongoing since the fiscal year 22 audit's been going on. There's been like a tandem audit for 23 going on, because that's the easiest way to deal with it. But, with respect to the 22 audit, there were things that were literally found that we just didn't know what to do with. I mean, it was just kind of a mess. And the other thing that's going on right now at the same time is this implementation of a new system and the new chart of accounts and switching everything over. So it's going to be busy in finance for the foreseeable future. And we're probably going to try to hire some help, because we've got too much to do. May doesn't do anything but audit, and then try to help out the people around here with daily operations, but she's buried in work, so.
I think the one positive thing to identify is that, or to kind of key on, is that the problems that have wreaked so much havoc in the last several audits have been identified, and solutions or ways to rectify those are being implemented going forward for 24, and we're early enough in 24 that with a little bit of luck and a lot of work, hard work, we can avoid the problems that we've seen specifically in 22 and 23 in 24, so that the plan and the hope is that with the staffing that we have and the capacity that we have and the changes in software and implementation of new policies and new procedures, that the 24 audit will be much cleaner, much more efficient, and
Yeah.
normal, somewhat normal anyway.
We want to have 23 audit done before the end of the year for sure, because we need it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't do anything for 24 until 23 is done. So that's why we started on it so early, because we knew that it was just we were trying to sort of stop the bleeding with respect to being able to identify the policies that we need to change. I mean, cash receipting's about to get an overhaul, so that's gonna be a thing.
So we should, to your point, Michelle, we should add to the agenda an item to take votes on what we need to encumber, because we should have that information from the audit. I don't know if on the agenda, I don't think we have to put the specific numbers. We could just list it as an agenda item, and then in the meeting, have that designated. That way it can happen September, otherwise it wouldn't happen until October.
Yeah, so I say, and Tammy can chime in, but I mean, we should at least encumber all of the capital projects. And then if there's anything in the individual department budget that didn't get paid, or the project didn't get done, or whatever that's happening in those, if they want to use that money from their 2023 budget to using the 2024 budget, that needs to be encumbered, so they can.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have specific amounts, you can just say remaining balance.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, so it's the capital, and then it's, we just need to know why. But I'm sure that there's different things that were coming out of the regular budgets that didn't get completed.
So can you put that on the agenda? And then we can have some discussions prior to that in terms of just some prep work around it. And then we'll be in a place to do that. That will help in terms of just
Yeah.
the audit and stuff, so you have that part done.
I will do that.
The only thing that would stop is if the end feels that there's not money to do that. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be, but.
I believe there is. There's some steps that need to be done before that. We're cleaning up some of the accounting for capital projects, and we're changing some of the ways that things are billed so that it's easier to keep track of that money. Part of my meetings with Woodard and Kern have been going over what funding we've received for which projects, which monies we've received, which monies we need to bill for the reimbursable grants. So there's a few steps, in my opinion, with respect to housekeeping on the accounting of capital projects that need to be done first before I have a really clear picture of what's left with respect to being able to do encumbrances. So I hopefully can have a pretty good feel for it by the time the September meeting comes along. I'll focus on that.
Michelle, what we can do is, we could encumber the amount that Ann's confident of, and then at a later point, if there are additional funds that are reconciled out, the council could then encumber those funds later on.
Yeah. You just have to be careful. Again, Tammy chimed in, but you gotta be careful not to spend money from 2023 without permission. That's all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's where that becomes Glenn's role, is that whatever amount is, if $1,000 is encumbered for X project, that's it. You can't spend more than that, and
Right.
I agree.
I'm thinking of the police department, I don't know. I mean, I'm just using it as, if the police department had something in the 23 budget that, to do something, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what it would be, but to do a special project or something that wasn't in the capital improvement, they can't complete that project unless the money is encumbered.
Correct.
Or it'll come out of the 24 budget. And so that's what we're worried about. And if there's you know, if we want to encumber any, I don't know if there's any of the social service money didn't get paid out or, you know, some things like that. Those would all need to be encumbered too, so,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
in case they come back at us and say, hey, you know, September, I haven't got my money yet from 2023.
Yep, no, I agree. And that's the process of getting this cleaned up, is to make sure that we move forward what we know and build on it, so, yep.
Yep.
Michelle, I can assure you the police department spent all their money.
But they didn't.
They-
That example.
That doesn't help.
So any other questions around that? Ann, did you have anything else?
I think I'm good.
Thank you.
At Dale's request, I asked Larry to come and attend this morning just to kind of give us, well, not us, but give you all some sort of update / justification, explanation as to the assessed value for the taxes. So Larry is here and handing out some paper.
Good morning.
Michelle and Tammy.
I'm passing out a paper. Michelle and Tammy's probably seen this before in years past, but it's the yearly increases of tax rates, city budgets, and total valuations. I don't know if we can get it into the Zoom or not.
They're not on, they're just on,
It's just phone. So,
That's okay, Larry. I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, and on the back, just a table that shows municipal expenses before revenue for the last 5 years. But can you hear me good?
Yep.
Okay. Well, really, I think the reason why I'm here is not to explain this table, but to just to inform you of what I did with the valuation this year was pretty simple. I increased the replacement cost new of building values by 10%. Of course, along with any building permits or new projects that were being built, those of course went up. But it was, for almost every property in town, it's just the building value, that assessed portion of the total assessment, just the building value that went up 10%. And let's see, back to the table, the total taxable value for the town, for the city, went up $89 million over the previous year. Of course, on the table, it shows that the year before, there was a bigger increase, and that difference the year before, the increase the year before was $181 million. And the increase the year before that was $53 million over the previous year. So really the thing that I think most people, at least speaking to me upstairs on the phone or coming in, they're asking about is they want to make sure that, or they don't know, some of them think they were hit with a 10% increase in their building value, but nobody else was, but that's not true. That was across the board. They just haven't checked or talked to neighbors, some of them. But as soon as I tell them, no, that's everybody got hit with a 10% increase to their replacement cost new of the building value, you know, they understand that then. Because it's just a building value, it makes a difference on what the overall total assessment increase was. So if you have an average 1 acre lot assessment of maybe $25,000 of a land value, but you have the same building value as someone who has a $200,000 on their land value, well, your total increase is not gonna be the same, because it's just the building value that went up to 10%. So, where if you have the lower $25,000 land value, your increase for total assessment is gonna be closer to 10% overall. But if you have a big, say, waterfront land value, your total increase is not gonna be as high, because the land portion is much higher. So that's basically it in a nutshell. It's just a 10% increase to the building value.
How does that increase compare to last year, the building value? Do you-
Well, last year, most residential homes went up 15% across the board.
So it was 15 last year, 10, so it's true, okay.
Yeah. And, yeah. I guess I was just a little surprised when I was doing commitment to, I was questioning that. And then Glenn, when I saw on the back side of the sheet, the municipal expenses before revenue going up over 20%, and I thought, oh, that can't be right, 'cause I'm looking at these previous year's figures of increase in the municipal side of the tax rate calculation form, and they were right around 2%, and then we hit a 20% for this year, and I really couldn't believe it at first. I had to be persuaded to go go ahead and use that figure. And that even the school budget, you know, for the 3 years prior, their budget stayed pretty much the same. It actually went down a couple years, just barely. But last year, well, for this year, it went up almost 17%. So I'm thinking, is this really what happened? And I couldn't believe it. And, but yeah.
Well, next year you can come to all the budget meetings.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, because my taxes went from $59.44 to $7,006.
Yeah. Yeah, on this truck, you don't have this, Michelle. Is anyone else on the phone?
Tammy.
Tammy's on there.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi.
Wish I could show you this, but I'm just reading where I took the municipal expenses increase, which is for this year is almost 2.8 million. And I added to the school increase of almost 2 million, and it comes to about 4.8 million. And if I just divide that 4.8 million divided by the tax rate we do have right now of 17.3, that would mean we would have to have a assessed value. That would equate to an assessed value of $274 million of added value we would have needed to keep the tax rate the same as it was last year.
Yeah, I was a little shocked when I got my bill. It was an 18% increase in my tax bill. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. And here's some reasoning behind the 10%, just to the building value. I couldn't see enough cell data, cell information that it was indicating that the land was increasing. You know, typically you would see you would think with a spike like this, there'd be all kinds of lots and subdivisions sell, and other land sales to go along with these higher real estate prices. But we're not seeing that, but we still have the higher prices. And so that was one reason for keeping it just to the building value alone. And also, you know, if through 2022, the appreciation in real estate generally was around 20%, but then it flattened out starting in 2023. The appreciation prices flattened out, but they didn't go down. It's just that the appreciation of property came down to roughly around 9% around April of this year. So it's still appreciating in this year. And what I didn't want to do is go another big increase in assessed values and risk the market just dropping like it usually does when we see a peak in real estate, a bubble. We usually see it bust, and we see lower assessed values, and then we see foreclosures and all that, and towns lowering their assessed values because they were right at that, now they're above, assessed values are above selling prices. So I didn't want to do that. And then there was a third thing with this stabilization program, it's really sad actually that the lawmakers had did this. They got the seniors a tax freeze for this year, but then within a year repealed it. And for those seniors, though they're getting a decent break this year for 1 year, because their tax bills are the same as last year, next year it's going to be hard on them considerably, because they're going to go right back to normal with what the taxes they would have paid this year had they not had the stabilization. So I was very mindful of that.
Yeah.
So.
I did hear Larry on that one. They rescinded that, but the plan is, they did that so that they could go in, there's a lot of loopholes.
Yep.
In that original, so that they were coming back to pass something without those loopholes. So hopefully the seniors next year will still be able to have their reduction.
Well,
Fingers crossed.
that's what I was hoping they'd do for the, just change it instead of repeal it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they did, that notice that went out with the tax bill, there is this deferment program, but that's like a reverse mortgage. Nobody, and we've had that for a while. Nobody applies for that. Because it has to be paid back with interest, and no one's asking for that. The tax credit, that's probably going to help people, but most everyone has a hard time doing their income tax forms, and to go in there and figure that out and take the credit is I think difficult for most people. Well, that's good news that you've heard that they're actually going to try to fix and bring back the stabilization program. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I read a couple of articles on that. I don't know how true it is, but hopefully it is. Larry, so where are we as far as percentage of our evaluation compared to the state? The state's evaluation of us? Are we at 100% or?
Well, we're just below 100%. Our actual certification's gonna be 100%, but we're right around 90% generally. But you know, the state law says if you're, wherever you are with what we think the ratio is, you can still certify at 100%. So that's what I'm looking at, around, I think we're around 90% with these assessed values to sell prices. Because a lot of the highest, or craziest, I shouldn't say highest, but craziest purchase prices were just ridiculous. There's no way that could ever be a market of value. Like there's properties that are simple ranch type properties on slab that sold for $400,000.
Yeah, I heard.
And not on the water. It's actually in that subdivision I used to live in Tamarack Road, and Jonathan Bates built those. And people at the time, you know, it was, you know, the COVID scared a lot of people, and rightly so, but they just needed someplace, and they locked in to a brand new house that was freshly built, and but overpaid tremendously. Those $400,000 sales for those ranches up there, I think I have 265 on. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just helpful, so when people call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some people call. Larry, have you had a lot of people in your office, or are people just kind of accepting it?
Well, once it's explained to them that, you know, it's just not them, their property that got hit, it's everyone. They've actually all been very nice about it. Even with the stabilization program being repealed, most of the people, when they first applied, thought that was too good to be true.
Yeah.
And so I've had nobody upstairs upset there and calling. I have Marcia upstairs now instead of Cal, and Marcia's doing great, and of course she's got a lot of experience speaking with people, and so yeah, I'm surprised actually that I'm not getting more phone calls.
Yeah, Michelle, I posed the same question to Sue the other day, because obviously her folks take the brunt of it when people are coming in to pay their taxes. And she said so far, knock on wood, that it's been better than last year. She said she had a lot more people who were aggravated last year. Now, part of that was because we were super late getting tax bills out, and we had to extend the deadline, and so people were aggravated about that issue. And this year we were closer to being on time, so we were more effective at getting it out so that they had plenty of time before the deadline. But yeah, no, she said so far this year she has really had very little as far as people coming in and being, or calling and being, you know, really angry or upset about the cost. So
Great. That's really good, especially for the tax office. I
Yes.
love them.
Oh, yeah, that's, I usually see about, every year, I usually see about a week, right after the bills go out of nonstop calling and people coming in. And it's already, yesterday, was very few people, actually. So, yeah, I am surprised with the increase.
You want some more calls? We could,
with, yeah, I just hope we, next year, one of the principal, I guess, thoughts from people that I have been speaking to are, that almost nobody knows what that no one's following the increase in the municipal budget or the school budget. But when they hear that, they think, oh, geez, wow.
Yeah, well, that's a different issue, and we had plenty of budget meetings, plenty of opportunities for the public to be engaged and to understand what those increases relate to.
Yeah.
This piece is about valuation, which is, even if the budget had remained the same, every taxpayer, property owner would have paid more in taxes. And you see that in the prior years. The mill rate went down, but people out of pocket paid more because the valuations went up. That's the part that people don't understand. They don't understand that process. The budgeting process, everybody has an opportunity to participate in. If they choose not to, and they're surprised later on, they can come back, they can talk to counselors, they can get the information, it's all there. And that's what I would encourage people to do, if they're listening to this recording, is to go back and look at that to understand what those increases relate to. School budget, where those increases came from. The municipal side, a lot of that is public works in terms of roads and addressing those issues. So I just think it's important for people, if they have questions, all the information is readily available, and they can watch those hours of budget workshops to understand the context.
Yeah, I do think though, we're not gonna be able to do this again for the 2025 budget. There's a point that we're gonna be pricing people out of the city, and we're gonna stop development in the city too if we get to be too expensive, but also because people can't just keep taking these huge increases. And maybe we should, be thinking about this and actually put the school on notice that, don't come to us with a huge increase again this year. Think about what you're spending your money on this year, and then when you start doing your budget this fall, we're not going to be able to do these huge increases. Because the city can't make that up, right? That's the thing. If they come through and we allow those huge increases again, and I understood that I voted for it because I know it was needed this year, but personally, I think it's, we need to make sure that they know that we can't do this again. They're already into their reserves this year.
Yeah, no,
We're 2 months into our 2024 budget, they're already using their reserves, or wanting to use their reserve money. That's not a good look.
Yep, I don't disagree with you. I think planning is helpful.
Just know when you work your budget, so we'll have to do the same. Because if people are being good this year, they just, it doesn't mean they will next year if it keeps going up. I know, even with mine, I knew it was part of the whole process, but when I got my tax bill, I was still a little taken aback, $7,000 for a year for my house is a lot. But it has to do with the value. It's nothing that, I'm not saying, Larry, that you did anything wrong. I just was like, I accept it. I know I want the school department to be successful. I want the city to be successful, but I can't go broke doing it either. So. And at some point, I want to sell my house in Oakland, and I don't want to lose value because the taxes are so high, nobody wants to live here.
Well, I'm going to spend 3 minutes every month, the third Monday, complaining about taxes.
Not funny at all.
Yeah.
All right, are we adjourning? Your
I think so.
mayorship?
Are we all set, Michelle?
You have anything else?
I don't have anything else, you guys.
No.
Okay.
Have a nice long weekend.
Thank you.
Hey,
Bye-bye now.
don't get out there
Thanks,
next
Larry.
week.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
I don't think,
down there.
Yeah.
I don't think property values are gonna go down. Every small town is going up because everybody's leaving the cities.